climbers, and welcome to Sport Climbing 101. My name is Lindner, and I'll be your host. I'm excited to share with you the safe and efficient techniques that I've learned over the past 20 years of climbing. I'm also excited to share with you my passion for the sport. This how-to video is designed for all levels. The beginner will learn the basics of leading, while the more advanced climber will learn new, efficient techniques for sending harder routes. Are you psyched? Let's go learn how to climb. Climbing has its own language. Let's first start off with the basic vocab, and then we'll work our way into more technical terms and concepts. So what is sport climbing? Sport climbing is primarily face climbing, using pre-placed permanent bolts that are drilled into the rock for protection. Trad climbing, or traditional climbing, is primarily crack climbing, using removable, non-permanent devices for protection. Bouldering is primarily face climbing, without a rope, relatively close to the ground, using a crash pad for protection. A route is a climb that is recognized to be a definite path up the rock and is usually assigned a name and a difficulty rating. Top roping is climbing with a rope already anchored above you for protection. This is the safest form of climbing. Leading is climbing while clipping into protection on the way up. It is the primary objective of sport climbing. Sending is the ultimate goal in sport climbing. It is the act of climbing a route from bottom to top without falling. Beta, directions or information on where to go or how to do specific moves on a route. On every route, there is a specific hard section. This is the crux. Now that you know the basic vocabulary used in sport climbing, let's talk about the basic hardware. First, you have a carabiner. Next, a piece of webbing. 2 carabiners on a piece of webbing is a quick draw. Take your quick draw, clip it into the hanger that's attached to the bolt that's drilled into the rock permanently. On the other end of the rope, you have a belay device. The 2 types of belay devices are the automatic locking gree-gree and the manual locking reverso. Now you know the basics. Let's go find some routes to climb. So here we are at the cliff. Obtain a copy of your local guidebook to help you locate routes that fit your ability level. Each route has a name and a difficulty rating assigned to it by the first ascensionist. You can find the routes by matching pictures and descriptions in the book with bolt lines and chalk marks on the wall. Grading systems were designed to give a numeric value to routes all over the world. In North America, we use the Yosemite decimal system. This system starts at 5.0 and ends at 5.15, currently the world's hardest grade. From 5.0 to 5.9 is a great beginner level. After 5.9, the numbers split into A, B, C, and D. For example, 5.9, 10A, 10B, 10C, 10D, 11A, 11B, and so on. Grades are not always accurate, but merely a guide to help you stay safe and set goals for your climbing. Alright, now you got a route you're psyched on. Let's get ready to climb. First, take your rope bag and roll it out. Tie a knot in one end in case the route's longer than the length of the rope. You don't want to get lowered off the end. Next, start flaking your rope by grabbing the one end and piling it onto the rope bag like this. You want to ensure there's no tangles or kinks in the rope. There's nothing worse than getting to the crux and getting hosed because your belayer's got a fatty knot in the middle of the rope. Make sure you flake it all the way to the other end. Now you're done flaking your rope to the end you're going to climb on. Let's get the harness on. Harness has got 2 leg loops and a waist belt. Put the leg loops on first. And then get the waist belt on. To tighten up the buckle, just cinch it down on the Petzl harnesses. On most other harnesses, you're going to have to double back the buckle manually. Whatever harness you buy, read the instructions first before you use it. A couple things about the harness. In front, you have the donut, or the belay loop. It connects your leg loops and your waist belt. On the side, you have the gear loops. Put your quick draws on. Now you got your harness on, let's get tied in. Tying a good knot is the most important safety issue in all of climbing. So don't get distracted, don't talk to anybody, don't start, go do something else and come back to it. Do your knot right. Here's a figure 8 knot. It's the most common, the best, and one I recommend to everybody. I learned how to do it before I could tie my own shoelaces. I still use it today. Take the end of the rope, go to about your other shoulder. It's about the right length of rope. Pinch that, fold it over, make a little loop, do 1.5 twists, and go back through the loop right there. Makes a nice little figure 8. Take the end of the rope, go through your leg loops first, then your waist, and pull the knot up. Take the end of the rope and try to follow this rope wherever it goes until it comes out the end. This will make a double figure 8. The closer you can get your knot to your harness, the better. This is a double figure 8 right here. What I do personally is a sport knot variation, where I take the excess rope and then follow it through the bottom of the knot. Pull it tight. You got yourself a nice, compact sport knot. Excess rope, stick it through the waist belt. Let's see that again. Take the end of the rope, stretch it across your body to the other shoulder, pinch that, loop that over, do another twist, so 1.5 twists all together, and come back through the loop. There you got a figure 8. Take the end of the rope, go through your leg loops first, then your waist belt, pull it up tight, and then proceed to follow this end all the way alongside this end until it comes out the other end. At this point, cinch it down so you have enough room to finish, and then finish your knot. That's your figure 8. At this point, loop it back through that end, pull it tight. You got yourself a nice, compact sport knot. Excess rope, stick it through the waist belt. To untie, take this rope and push it into the knot. So loosen up the whole knot, especially if it's really tight. Then it's really easy to untie. Now you got a safely tied knot. Scope the route to see how many bolts you can count, so you know how many draws to bring. Okay. Now you're ready to put your shoes and your chalk bag on and yell to your belayer that you need a belay. Hey Billy, get over here. I want to fire this rig. Now I'm tied in and my belayer's got me on. It's double check time. As a climber, it's my duty to double check the belayer's setup. Make sure my rope goes to the climber on the gree-gree and the hand on the gree-gree goes to the hand of the belayer. Next, check the locking beaner. Make sure it's locked by squeezing it. Also, check the buckle on the belt to make sure it's fastened correctly. The belayer's job is to double check my setup, make sure my knot's tied correctly, and also make sure my belt buckle's fastened correctly. Now we're A-OK. Start the verbal communication. As a climber, it's my job to say, "On belay." The belayer says,
"Belay on."
As a climber, I say, "Climbing." The belayer says,
"Climb on."
"Now we're ready to go." Now you're ready to start sport climbing. Keep in mind, be aware of your surroundings, keep clear communication with your belayer, and stay relaxed. On belay?
Belay on.
Climbing.
Climb on.
When you get to your first bolt, take a quick draw off your harness, clip the straight gate into the hanger, pull up your rope, and clip it into the bottom beaner, the bent gate. Number 1 rule, make sure the rope going to your knot is on the outside of the bottom carabiner, coming away from the rock. There's 2 ways to clip a quick draw. If the bottom beaner is facing towards you, pull the rope up, pinch the rope between your forefinger and thumb, stabilize the carabiner with your middle finger, and then push the rope through with your thumb. Now, if the draw's facing the other way, it's facing away from you, pull the rope up the same way, grab the back of the beaner with your thumb, and just pinch the rope in like this. Coming up to my second bolt, I'm going to show you an example of an incorrect clip. This is called a back clip, when the rope going to your knot is on the inside of the quick draw. What can happen is as you start climbing up, you go up, and if you fall, it can unclip itself. You always want to have your rope on the outside of the carabiner. That way when you climb up, no matter which way you go, the rope is always good. Sometimes when you're clipping and you're not looking down, you'll grab the nearest rope. If you grab your belayer's rope instead of your rope, it's called a Z-clip. Once you start climbing, you won't get too far, and if you fall, the last draw you clipped ain't gonna do you too much good. Ah! When clipping, always grab from your knot and pull up to clip. This is why it's nice to have a knot that's really close to your harness, so you have some room to work with. Here are a few more clipping tips. Always stay on balance when you're about to clip. Get your feet situated on good holds, make sure your hand's on something good, stay in balance, and clip. Also, never cross clip if you can. It's rarely the best clipping stance. If you have to cross over, it's a lot more effort. It can usually be better set up by switching hands, setting up correctly, and clipping. Try to avoid the natural tendency to clip from really, really low by stretching up and clipping like this. If you fall, you have a lot more rope in your hand and you can fall a lot farther. Also, it's a lot more effort on your hand. It's much more efficient to make another move up higher and just clip. As you get higher on the route, it's a good idea to yell clipping to your belayer to let him know you need some extra slack, especially if he can't see you. Clipping. Also, it's a good idea to bite the rope, then grab some extra slack to clip the quick draw. Never make a move with a rope in your mouth. I've seen some people fall and rip their whole grill out. It's what we call a bad idea. Another thing to think about is to face the direction of your gates away from the direction you want to climb. So if I'm going to go left, I'm going to face the direction of my gates going right. And vice versa. If I'm going right, I want them going left. Here's why. Say I'm going up and left right here, and my draw is facing this way, the incorrect way. As I go up, there's a slight possibility that the draw can come like this and unclip itself as you fall. This is very rare. I've only seen this happen twice in 20 years, but it's something to think about. Falling is a fact of sport climbing. It's gonna happen. It could be a little scary at first, but once you get used to it, it's actually kind of fun. It's important you know how to fall. First and foremost, make sure your leg's not going to get caught in the rope, like this, or by crossing it through like this. Next, be aware of your surroundings. Make sure your legs are prepared to come into the wall. Falling. There are different ways to belay a falling climber. Clear communication with your belayer is vital. If you are 1 foot above your bolt, yell "take" to your belayer. Take! Now, if you are more than 1 foot above your bolt, yell "falling" to your belayer. No matter how scared you are, never grab the quick draw as you're falling. This will cause serious finger injury. Also, don't jump away from the rock, just fall straight down. Falling. The most important thing to remember when leading is to not get your leg caught in the rope. This is done by either putting your foot through the rope like this, which when you fall gives you a nasty rope burn, or more importantly, by putting your leg through the rope like this. What happens is as you start to fall, you get completely flipped upside down like this, throwing your head right at the rock. The best thing to do while doing this is to wrap your hands around your head for protection. Now, if you're more than 1 foot above your last bolt, yell "falling" to your belayer. No matter how scared you are, never grab the quick draw as you're falling. It'll cause serious finger injury. Also, never jump away from the rock. Just fall straight down. Falling. Sometimes after you fall on steep, traversing routes, you get stuck in space. To get back to the rope, start swinging like you're on a swing set. Next, get a couple pushes out, and then push away from the direction you want to go. Surprisingly, this works. Next, start yarding up the rope. I use my foot to help me, and if you can, grab a quick draw to help. Make sure you don't pull up too fast, or you can put your belayer on their butt and perhaps hurt them. Keep yarding up the rope until you get to the draw where you fell at. Now you're ready to try the sequence again. After falling on super steep routes, sometimes it's impossible to get back to the rope. Here's what you do. First, communicate with your belayer. "Hey Billy, I'm going to boink up the rope." Next, grab the rope above your head, do a pull-up, and simply let it go. That's called boinking. Here's a more advanced way. Grab the rope, and then shoot your legs up in the air. Ready? Eventually, you'll get back up to your quick draw. Okay, now we're at the anchors. Here we have chain anchors that are connected to 2 bomber bolts. And if you're going to top rope the route, or try it again, take your quick draws, put them into the bottom links. Actually, it's better to face them away from the direction of each other. Clip into them. And now you have 2 draws with opposing gates, which is a good setup for trying it again, or top roping, or anything you need to do. Now, if you're going to clean the route, take the quick draws, move them up to the middle chain links, which will leave room to thread the rope through the bottom links. Take another quick draw if you have it, clip it into your donut, and now grab your donut draw here, grab a draw here, pull up, and connect them together like this. Now, take this draw and clip it into here. Now you're into 2 points of contact, and you're ready to start threading the rope. To do this, yell to your belayer that you're straight in and you need some slack. Always be sure to use their name. You don't want to confuse any other belayers at the cliff and take their climber off belay. So, I'm straight in, Billy. Give me some slack. Okay, now pull up about 5 feet of slack here. I tie a clove hitch, or any knot will do, and clip it into here. This is so you don't drop the rope when you're untying and threading it through the anchors. Now you're ready to untie. Depending on how much you've fallen, this can be a difficult task. Unthread it, untie the knot, and then thread it through the anchors. The bottom links. Pull it all the way through, and then retie in. Do your same figure eight. Tie through your waist belt and your leg loops. Always make sure you got at least a couple inches here. Okay, now our knot's tied back into the harness. We can drop this excess slack by untying this knot and dropping the slack. I'm not going to drop the rope anymore, so we don't need that knot there anymore. Next, we want to let our belayer know that we're going to go back on them. Make sure you say their name. Back on you, Billy.
Got you, Chris.
Okay, now I've heard a positive response from my belayer. I feel the tension in the rope. Before you unclip, double check the whole setup. Make sure your knot's tied correctly. Looks good. Make sure you're through your leg loops and your waist harness. Next, make sure the rope's going through both anchors. You always want to be clipped in from your harness to the anchors in some way or another. So it's looking good. Okay, now I can start taking the quick draws off the anchors and start cleaning their out. Personally, I always do a triple check just to make sure. Double check knot. Looks good. Looks good. Okay, ready to take the draws off. Now I'm safely threaded through the anchors. Be sure to practice this process several times on the ground, along with your belayer going over the verbal communication before you ever try it 100 feet up off the deck. There are a variety of different types of anchors. We've gone over chain link anchors, but in this case, we have a chain link with a fixed carabiner attached to it. All you have to do is clip in and lower down. Now, you never want to take these fixed carabiners with you. Just leave them there. Now, my buddy, he's going to top rope this after me. So what I'm going to do is take my own quick draw, clip it in, and have him top rope off of my quick draws rather than the fixed carabiners so that it doesn't get any unnecessary wear and tear. Little bit of slack. Okay, take that, Billy. Okay, lower down. The last most common type of anchor is the cold shut, or in this case, the open shut. Take your rope, move it over the top, and you're good to go. Take Billy. Now make sure you don't climb above the anchor, or your rope can fall out. Lower. Now I'm set to clean the quick draws off the bolts. First, take a quick draw, clip it to the donut on your harness, clip the other end to the belayer's rope. That way when I lower it down, I go right down to each quick draw on each bolt. Now I can yell to my belayer, "Lower me, Billy." When you're lowering down, it's good to keep your feet up right in front of you. Just kind of walk down like a sidewalk. Keeps you on balance. Okay, stop there. Okay. All right, thanks. Off belay.
Belay off.
Cleaning a route can be very difficult, sometimes harder than actually climbing the route itself. Here's a few tricks to help you out. When you're coming down, I like to stay clipped in through my donut to the rope, which helps you from swinging out. Then you can tell your belayer to just lower you a little bit until you get down to the next draw. I like to stop a little bit before the draw. Then grab onto a jug nearby and unclip the bolt from the draw from the bolt. Take, and once you swing out, you take the draw off, clip it on your belt, and stay a little lower to come down to the next draw. When it gets really steep, it's easier to turn around, pull yourself to the quick draw like this. Now I see the second draw is really close to the third draw. So what I'll do is grab a draw and clip into the third draw. From here, you can simply grab the second draw, save myself a little bit of work. Now I see I can get the first draw from the ground, so I'm just going to come down and swing out. But I see there's a big boulder there behind me. So what I'm going to do, stay clipped into this rope and just have my belayer lower me out. Before you swing, check. Good, take. Okay, no swing. Now I can come down. Okay, I'm off belay. Thanks.
Belay off.
If you can't reach your first draw from the ground, you have two options. First option, to take a draw, clip into your donut, and clip directly into the second draw. From here, you can reach down and grab your first draw. This only works if the first and second bolt are close enough together. This leads us into our next option. Your second option is to clip directly into the first bolt. To do this, clip into your donut and clip into the bottom beaner. From here, unclip the ropes and let your belayer walk out. Have them walk out and a little bit to one side or the other so that your trajectory is clear. From here, unclip the bolt, look where you're going to swing, and have a fun time. Woo! All right. Okay, I'm off belay. Thanks.
Belay off.
Now you're done cleaning the route. Make sure you get the knot out of the end of the rope, and then as you're pulling it, yell rope to everybody around you to let them know the rope's coming down. Rope! All right. Becoming a good belayer takes practice. Knowing exactly what to do at the right time will only come with experience. Here's a few tips to get you started. Get a pair of leather gloves for belaying. They help keep your hands clean, reduce skin abrasion, and allow you to lower your climber with more control. Petzl makes a really good pair of leather belay gloves. The Gree is the preferred sport climbing belay device. It is an automatic locking device. Here's how you set it up. First, take the locking carabiner off and clip it to your belay loop. Next, open the Gree up, take the climber's rope and feed it into the Gree. Close the Gree and then check to make sure that your setup matches the diagram on the Gree. The picture of the climber should lead to the climber, and the picture of the hand should lead to your brake hand. Next, clip it into your locking carabiner and lock the carabiner. You should use your dominant hand for your brake hand. I'm right-handed, so I use my right hand as the brake hand. Okay, the climber's ready to climb, and I got him on belay. It's double check time. As a belayer, it's my job to check his knot, check the waist belt, make sure it's fastened correctly, and as the climber, it's his job to check my Gree, check my locking beaner, and check my waist belt to make sure it's fastened correctly. Now we're ready to climb and start our verbal communication.
On belay.
Belay is on.
Climbing.
Climb on. Now as the climber's going to the first bolt, it's my job to give him a good spot in case he falls. Nice. Good job. As the climber's climbing past the first bolt, it's a good idea to hold the rope next to the rock so they can move their feet around the rope if they need to. Your main objective as a belayer is to keep your climber from hitting the ground. Everything else is secondary. You do this by monitoring the amount of slack that you have coming from the Gree. If you have too much slack out, the climber can have the potential to hit the ground. Also, you have to be able to engage the Gree when your climber says take or falling.
Take.
The second objective is to anticipate the climber's movements. For example, if you see the climber clipping, it's your job to give them enough slack.
Clipping. Clipping.
If you don't, this is called short roping the climber. What you want to do is anticipate the clip, be one step ahead of them, and give them enough slack to clip.
Clipping.
Falling happens expectedly and unexpectedly. You have to know how to handle each scenario. The first scenario involves the climber yelling take.
Take.
When you hear take the excess slack out of the rope while stepping backwards and sitting down on the rope, like this. Here it is in real time.
Take.
The second scenario involves the climber yelling falling or unexpectedly pitching off the rock. Here's what you do. Instead of taking in the slack and sitting down like you did in the take scenario, you leave a little slack out, stay light on your feet, and get ready for the fall.
Falling.
Let's see that fall again. But first, on a side note, if I'm standing 10 feet away from the first bolt, and I'm chilling out here, and my climber falls, I'm not only going to get dragged along the ground, but I'm going to get smashed into that wall. So what you need to do is stay within a couple feet of the first bolt at all times. That way you're ready for the big fall.
Falling.
Okay. Now Billy wants to start yarding back up the rope to get to his last quick draw. As a belayer, I'm going to try to keep all the weight I can on the rope. When I get to the ground, it gets a little tricky. You still want to maintain all the weight on the rope. Here's what you do. Grab your left hand high, sink down, bend your legs, and then reel in the slack with your right hand. Then grab your right hand lower on the Gree, bring your left hand high again, and do it again. Here it is in real time. Now he's back up at his last quick draw. Sometimes, when a climber falls on a super steep route, they get trapped in space and can't get back to the wall to grab the rope to climb back up. They're going to start bumping or boinking up the rope. As a belayer, you need to keep maximum force on the rope. I do this by jumping up and keeping all my weight on the rope, like this. Now, as he bumps up, I go down. I keep climbing back up the rope and keeping my feet ready to land on the ground. Okay, stop. I can tell him to stop when I get low to the ground because I don't want to bang my butt on the rocks on the ground. So what I do is I tell him to stop, and then I can jump back up and get up in the air for another round. Okay, stop. Now we've gone over cleaning a route from the climber's point of view. Let's go over it from the belayer's perspective. Now, as you know, as the climber gets to the anchors, they're going to yell that they're straight in.
I'm straight in, Chris.
Okay, Billy. This is my cue to give them a few feet of slack, about 5 feet or so they can thread the rope through the anchors. Now, straight in does not mean for me to take them off belay. Off belay means off belay. Now I'm just waiting for him to say back on you.
Okay, I'm back on you, Chris. Take.
Okay, gotcha, Billy. Now we're ready to lower and clean the rest of the route. Now you're ready to lower your climber.
Ready to lower, Chris.
Okay, Billy, lowering you. As you're lowering, and he's cleaning the draws, stop a couple feet above each bolt. It's a lot easier for him to clean the draw from above the bolt than it is below. Also, when you stop, give a good solid take so he stays in the same position. When he gets to the first draw, come real close to the wall so it's easy for him to unclip the draw from the rope. Another responsibility for the belayer is to keep an eye on the excess rope so you don't lower your climber off the end of the rope. This should be impossible because you should have a knot tied in the other end. As your climber gets close to the ground, slow them down so they can find their feeting, and then give them a bunch of slack.
Off belay.
Belay's off. Let's talk about some gree-gree specifics. Most of the time when you're belaying, your hands are going to be in this position to give out slack, to take in slack, and whatever you need. Now, there's specific situations where you're going to need to give out a lot of slack all at once. This is mostly in clipping scenarios. What to do is to bring your hand down to the gree-gree, use your brake hand to squeeze the bottom of the gree-gree, and keep the rope in between your forefinger and your thumb. This way, you can give out slack super quick. While squeezing the gree-gree, if your climber falls, immediately slide your hand to the braking position. If you don't, and you continue to squeeze the gree-gree, the rope's going to slide through the gree-gree until the climber either hits the ground or you move your hand to the braking position. This is the #1 accident in gree-gree use. Here are a few key points to belay safely. Rule number 1, always keep an eye on your climber at all times. Rule number 2, don't talk to anybody else at the cliff while you're belaying. Rule number 3, keep flicking the rope underneath you to make sure there's no kinks so that if you need to give some slack, you don't get hung up. You can do this while looking at your climber and just flicking it underneath you. Next, never sit down on the belay. I got you, I got you, I got you. The brake hand should be your dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so I use my right hand as the brake hand. The general rule of thumb for belaying is never let go of your brake hand. Having a fun and safe day at the crag with your friends is what climbing is all about. The next ultimate goal is red pointing harder routes. Here's a few tips to get you started. Warming up is key to a good climbing day and injury prevention. Don't underestimate it. Climbing is 90% footwork, so I like to stretch my legs a lot before I climb. I like to do these butterfly stretches. They help me for high stepping and also getting my hips in really close to the wall while I'm climbing. Also, make sure your shoulders are nice and warmed up. Stretch your forearms out by bending your hands back, and stretch your wrists out by bending your hands the other way. On the first route of the day, try to slow down and practice perfect technique. Have precise footwork on every foot movement. Rather than scraping your foot down the wall and landing on a foothold like this, try to come in and kiss the foothold with your big toe. This is called silent feet. Stay in balance and in control for every movement. To find your flow, try to picture your climbing as one continuous move up the rock. An undercling is an upside-down hold. A sloper is an edgeless hold requiring just friction to hang on to. Ah! A crimp is a horizontal edge grabbed either open-handed or close-handed. A pocket is a hole in the wall that can be used for 3 fingers, 2 fingers, or 1 finger. A 1-finger pocket is also called a mono. Use caution. This is prone to injury. A pinch is a hold you squeeze between your thumb and fingers. A gaston is an opposing side pull grabbed with the opposite hand. An intermediate is a hold used for just a second before going again. A hand jam, commonly used in traditional climbing, requires you to stuff your hand into a crack and then pull your thumb down to engage. Finger locks are used in small cracks. First, stick your fingers in vertically, then twist horizontally. Neglect the pain, and you'll have a good handhold. A move is a single sequential movement up the rock. Let's go bust a move or two. Matching on a hold is when you bring one hand next to the other hand on the same hold and then bust another move. Matching feet on a foothold is when you bring one foot and replace it on the same hold as the other. A dyno is short for a dynamic movement or jump up the rock. A dead point is a controlled dyno where your feet maintain contact with the rock. A crossover is when you reach one hand over your other arm to grab the next hold. A cross under is when you reach underneath your arm to grab the next hold. When grabbing a side pull, it's a good idea to use the outside edge of your opposite foot to maintain balance. This is called a back step. A high step is when you bring your foot super high and then rock your hips on top of it to stay in balance. A heel hook is when you bring your heel onto a ledge to help bring your hips into the wall. Rather than putting it on vertically, it's better to put it on horizontally, which helps bring your hips in easier. If you can find a toe hook as well, this is called a heel toe cam. Doesn't get any better than that. A toe hook is when you use the top of your foot to hook onto a feature. This is commonly used on steeper routes to help keep your body into the wall. A knee bar is when you have your foot and your knee opposing against two different features. Makes for a nice rest. A stem is when your hands and feet are pushing against two opposing features. A drop knee is an over-exaggerated back step. You turn your knee into the wall and then drop it like it's hot. Traversing is horizontal movement across the wall. Let's talk about one of my favorite aspects of climbing, onsighting. Now, as you already know, to onsite a route, just do it first try, without knowing any beta, without people shouting beta from the ground to you, without watching it on video beforehand, just you figuring out the puzzle by yourself. Here's some tips, some tricks for clipping the chains first go. Alright, so before I start onsighting, I like to take a look at the route. Try to look for all the holds I can see from the ground, any kind of rests I can get, clipping stances, tick marks for footholds and handholds. And then right before you start, you always want to get at least the first 3, 4, 5 moves completely memorized, just so you can start out of the gates with an efficient start. I always try to keep straight arms, staying relaxed, being alert, being reserved but ready to attack. Here I already know these moves, so it makes it look like I already know what I'm doing, but I don't. But I can see these holds from the ground, so got a pretty good idea of what to do. Onsighting can take a bit longer than regular climbing because you seem to rest at every given rest possible, because you never know if you're going to get another one afterwards. So staying fresh is the key to the game. You don't want to get pumped. I've never really found out the exact correct beta for onsighting. Sometimes I like to go really fast and try to just go through it really, really quickly and try not to get pumped that way. Sometimes I like to go really slow and methodical. Just really breathe, relax, straight arms, and really kind of think about it and conserve energy that way. Either beta seems to work in certain situations and not work in certain situations. Haven't really found the exact beta that works, but I think on this one I kind of take the slow, methodical approach. Keep the straight arms going, not wasting time, but not really rushing it either. Just kind of flowing. If you can get that exact flow, where you're not wasting strength, and just using the right amount, I think you'll be able to onsight at your max. Problem with onsighting is it's harder than regular climbing, so if you're onsighting 13A, it's going to feel like 13B or 13C. Because you're always going to do it, in a less efficient way than if you had worked the route for a year. So the idea is getting it to be as efficient as possible so you can bring it back down to its 13A level. Unless you're really strong, then you can do it at the 13C level. But to onsight at your max, you got to bring it down. So it's really important when you get to a rest, or at any point in the route, to look ahead as much as possible. I always try to visualize myself doing the next couple moves, so I know which hand goes where, and where my feet are going to have to go to make that next move. So always keep at least 2 moves ahead, always stuck in your mind. Here I came to a pretty good rest, so I'm going to take advantage of it and get completely rested. It's extremely cold that day, maybe 38 degrees or so. So I'm putting my hand on the back of my neck to keep my hands warm. Usually that's the warmest spot on your body unless you stick it down your pants, but then people start looking at you weird. The back of the neck's pretty safe. Again, regain composure at every rest, breathing, relaxing, straight arms. Not very much movement in your body, just staying still, straight arms, getting ready to attack. Now if you had a good rest, and you make a move or two up, you run into some problems, instead of going for it and potentially falling, come back down to that rest. Now you know what the holds feel like for the next two moves. Get completely rested, and then attack again. Always look for tick marks. They usually will lead you to the best holds, or at least best part of the hold. Also look for tick marks for footholds. And if you can spot boot rubber, little black marks or scuff marks on some of the footholds, you can see what other people use most of the time, which is usually the best sequence, and that's what the sequence you want to use. It's the best one. So look for the holds that seem to get the most traffic, the footholds that seem to get the most traffic. Try to fall into the beta that everybody else has already worked out. Here I'm getting kind of pumped. Trying to take advantage of any little rest I can before the last move. Getting my hands set up. I know I gotta make one more move. Look a little short. Yeah, got it. And that's how you clip the chains, first try.
The best thing about climbing is that the harder the routes get, the better they get. The variety of movement, technique, and problem-solving skills required to send a route at your ultimate max is what makes climbing fun. Some routes take a couple minutes to send, some take a couple years. The longer you try them, the more emotionally rewarding it is in the end when you finally send.
3 words to summarize working routes: rehearse, rehearse, and rehearse. Memorizing a specific beta sequence is the most important tool for sending routes at your limit. You don't want to make the same mistake twice. Working long-term routes is where climbing turns from a hobby to an obsession. So the idea on the first run up is to look at all potential holds and all potential footholds. You want to come up with the right beta, the most efficient beta. Climbing is about efficiency. If you come up with the right beta, you want to do it the exact same way every time from there on out. Always be looking at all the holds, looking at all the potential footholds, trying the one that feels best at first, and then thinking about it and asking yourself, was it the best beta possible? The first burn, even if you can't do all the moves first go, is the burn where you want to learn every single potential hold and foothold. So you have it in your mind. You want to learn the route. Study it like a book. Now that section I was able to do, but I'm going to come back down and I'm going to do it again. Again, rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. It helps to have a dogging draw with you on your harness so you can clip into the rope, lower down, and top rope without swinging out, especially on really steep routes. Also, if you found a foothold that works for you, sometimes it's helpful to put a tick mark on it so it's easy to remember when you get to that same point on your next burn. So again, even while you're resting, you want to be ingraining the moves in your brain so that when you go to bed that night, you dream about the moves. When you wake up, you think about the moves. You should be able to visualize every single hold on the route after you've done it. So again, I'm top roping this section just to be able to do it again, get the body position, memorize the body position, even practice the clip, where I'm going to clip how I'm going to clip, what footholds I'm going to use to clip. All this is important because on the burn, the final go, you want to be as efficient as possible. If you want to take a breather, getting kind of tired, it's okay. Take your dog and draw, clip into the higher carabiner, or in this case on the fixed draw, it's just the quick link up on top. And you can feel the next holds. Take a breather, let your rope have a breather, your belayer have a breather, and take your time. Not trying to rush through your first run on a route. Oftentimes, your first burn on a route will take hours. You need a patient belayer. Sometimes that's hard to find. There's many different ways to do a sequence. Different body types, different arm lengths, different strengths on particular holds will yield different techniques and different betas for a particular route. So you need to find the one that fits you best. This next sequence appears to be the hardest one yet. Not really sure exactly where to go. I can get set up, but I'm not really sure what hold to grab or exactly where to put my feet. So I just try it anyways. Last ditch effort. Plan on falling a lot. Helps to have a good belayer to give you a nice soft catch. Climbing back up the rope. Grab the quick draw if you can. It makes it a little easier rather than pulling up the rope. And then go in straight. Take a breather. Sometimes you can go in straight and then push off the rock with your feet, climb up the holds a little easier, and clip the next quick draw so you don't have to keep falling over and over and over again. A lot of times it's helpful to work sequences from the top down rather than the bottom up. You can figure out where you need to go and then work on a way on how to get there. Kind of working it from the top down, saying, oh, I need to get my hand here, so where do I need to get my feet to be able to reach that? How is this going to work out? Well, now I have an idea of what the holds are like, so I'll start figuring out sequences on how to get there. The straight-on method isn't really working for me, so I'm going to look for alternatives, thinking outside the box. Throw that heel hook up there, did the move no problem, not even a crux move. So what appeared to be the crux turned out not to be so hard once I tested some other beta. But just because you find one set of beta doesn't mean it's the right beta. So explore alternatives. There I tried the right heel hook. Now I'm going to see if I can try a left heel hook and avoid that hold out left altogether by just skipping a move. But that left hand's kind of blower, and it makes that move really hard. So I'm going to ditch that beta. Keep looking for other beta. Keeping in mind that my heel hook seemed to work just fine. But always look for alternatives. I think I'm going to go with the heel hook. So again, rehearse that sequence. Find what foot beta it takes to get into the move efficiently. So even though I can do this move easy right off the dog there, you link the 6 or 7 bolts below it into it, you're going to be pretty pumped. So you have to be able to do it as efficiently as possible. Always looking out for where you can potentially cop a little bit of a rest, trying to get just any little energy back. It's a puzzle. Figure it out. If other people can do it, you can do it. The last 10 feet of a climb could be the most important. It might not be the hardest, but if you put the other 60 feet below it, it'll turn into the hardest right away. So make sure, even if you're on big holds, you don't forget what to do, because those big holds are going to feel mighty crappy when you're up that high and super pumped.
Again, looking for rests. Even if you don't need them at the time, you might need them later on. And why are the last hard moves? As you get pumped, you stop thinking. So it's good to have everything ingrained in your memory without even having to think about it. Because as soon as the blood starts rushing from your brain to your forearms, you'll stop thinking quite as much. Now, once you have done all the moves, the next step is linking them together with the smallest amount of falls. If you fall 5 times, try to make it your goal to do 4 falls on your next try, then 3, then 2, and eventually the send. Here I'm trying to link through this middle section. I have a rest right before it, so I think I can get it all back, and now I just need to be able to punch through this middle section of the route up to the next rest. I've rehearsed all the moves. Now I'm just trying to do it as efficiently and perfectly as possible so that my next burn, I can duplicate it without any error. I want to clip in the same position, rest at the same position, and put my feet in the exact same footholds every time. No errors. Efficiency. Already on my second burn on this route, I have good progress, and I'm looking forward to eliminating all falls on the next burn. And if I don't eliminate all falls in the next burn, I'm going to learn from that burn, figure out what I did wrong, improve upon it, and don't make the same mistake twice. So as you can already see, I just linked about 1/3 of the route. Super psyched. Now I just got to put it all together.
A stick clip is a must-have in any sport climber's arsenal. It's cheap and easy to build. Just go to your local hardware store, pick up a painter pole, 2 metal brackets, a spring clamp, put your brackets on the clamp, put the clamp on the pole, tighten those rigs down, and bango shabamo. You got a banging stick clip. Stick clips are key for pre-clipping high, dangerous first bolts, or for clipping through sections of a route that you'd rather top rope than lead. Here's how you set up the stick clip. First, open it up, put the carabiner in there, open the gate, clip the rope through, make sure your climbing end's on the outside, extend the rig, and then bam! You got a pre-clip first bolt. All right. If the quick draw is already on the first bolt, here's how you pre-clip it. Take a loop of the rope, put it through the clamp, take one end, clamp it inside the clamp, then take the loose end, follow it along the pole here, move up to the first draw, put the draw through the loop, then slowly pull on the loose end until it clips the draw. Pull it down. Make sure the climbing end's on the outside. If it is, you're ready to rock climb. When you don't have a stick clip and the first bolt is out of reach, you got one last option, and that's the rodeo clip. Some people prefer to rodeo clip kind of like a jump rope method, where they grab both ends of the rope with 2 hands, and then they proceed to kind of whip it up there. But see how it always gets kind of tangled up? I prefer to hold both ropes with one hand, get the right distance, and then kind of start whipping around in a circle, get the right length, and bammo, shabammo. You got it on the top there. Are you ready to rock and roll? This is a classic scenario at a popular cliff. I walk up, and somebody's about to try the route that I want to try. Here's what you do. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, man?
How many people are getting on this after you?
I'm the last one.
Sweet. Now you take your rope, Put it at the base of the cliff. Now you have a placeholder in line. You can come back when he's done. Have a good time.
Thanks. Hey, how's it going?
Hey dude, is this your project?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to
You gonna be falling on this thing?
I hope not.
I'm just gonna warm up real quick on this thing. So I just need to get warmed up for my
Dude,
project.
I'm tied in now, dude.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
okay. I'll be really quick.
But I'm already tied in. He's ready to belay
Yeah,
me.
it's cool,
I mean,
man. I won't even clip half the draws, man.
Dude, come on.
Hey,
I want to get on
Hey,
this
Jimmy.
thing, dude. Don't be a jerk.
hey, what? Jimmy, bring my f***ing harness. A tick mark is a line of chalk to help you locate key handholds or footholds while you're working a route. It's common courtesy to brush the tick marks off when you're done using them. Sometimes when you come to the cliff, you'll see quick draws hanging on a route. Oftentimes, people will work a route and leave their draws on for extended periods of time. These draws are not yours. Don't steal them. Stealing is bad karma, and the last thing you need in climbing is bad karma working against you. Let's talk about some crappy ethics. I'm standing a couple feet away from one of America's best sport climbing cliffs. But if you could smell what I'm smelling right now, your eyes would be watering too. If you need to relieve yourself, do so at least 100 yards away from the cliff. Remember, leaving teepee is littering, and littering is not acceptable by climbers. Pack out anything that's not biodegradable. To learn more about how you can help keep your local cliff clean and open, visit www.accessfund.org and make a contribution. It's every climber's obligation. Dude, what are you doing?
Taking a piss.
This is exactly how you get your local cliff shut down. Thanks for taking the time to watch this how-to video. Remember, this is not a replacement for one-on-one instruction, but rather a guide to help you along the way. Climbing's not just a hobby, but rather a way of life. It will take you to some of the most beautiful and remote areas of the whole world. Please remember, vote for the environment, leave no trace behind, and maintain a respectful image for climbers all over. Participate in local crag cleanups, and even more importantly, support the Access Fund. Happy and safe climbing. Can you toss me some water real quick?
Good job, Carlos.
Rodeo clipping. Here we go.